All right, what's up, fam? I need you to go check out this new YouTube channel called Try Media. They just started up, and I could tell they're going to be doing some great things in the future. They asked me to join their panel one day to discuss the origin of hip-hop as I see it. And so just check this out. Enjoy the show. I'm only going to play it about 2 hours of the show. It's about 3 hours long, so if you want to see the rest of it, go to Try Media and check out the rest of it. Now, stick to the end of this video because you're going to enjoy something that happened that got me laughing. So you don't want to miss this. So sit back, relax, and enjoy.
Think you on mute, man.
Yeah, talking to myself like a damn fool. But welcome. Thank y'all for coming out. This is gonna be very impactful. One of the things I will say, there's a lot of things in the news, a lot of weird things in the news, positive things in the news, but there's some other things that in this hip hop conversation that's coming up. This is the part 2 of our presentation series. First part of our series was Dr. Derek Colon. This is the second episode of our presentation series. We have another interview series, but this is where we're going to kind of get educated so we can form better opinions on these conversations. I know everybody saw Lord Jamar in that conversation. We're going to talk about that for a little bit. But first, I'm going to get into my brother Hits. What's going on, brother?
What's up, man? Busy day. What's up, Truth?
Hey,
how you doing, bro?
Hits? How you doing, brother?
I'm good. Peace to the chat. Thank y'all for stopping through. Yeah, hot topic everywhere. So we're trying to give everybody a fair chance to speak their piece and share their knowledge. I'm sure everyone is going to learn something. That's what's most important, is that we all are going to learn something that we didn't know, whether we like it or not. We may learn something, and that's what's most important, and that's what TMI is here for. To share our platform with people who have something meaningful to say, especially about current events. That's it.
Before we get into True Savior, I want to shout out the chat. We got Absolute 72 in the building. He was actually first. He was here. He's been here since 6:30. That's wild.
Absolute gets a gold star.
Yeah. Matter of fact, we're gonna make you might get a mod for that. We're gonna see how you conduct yourself today. Where my mods at? China Black in the building. Moses Mahomes in the building. T. Cavi, Rio Solid. Love to y'all. JG in the building. Don Diego in the building. He says, Don Diego says, debunk the Latin breakdown and the myth of a Latin influence in Black American music. Okay, so I think a lot of these people, you were literally, before I'm gonna introduce you now. What's up, Pure Black? You were literally, when we did this first show, we've been on this hip hop journey on this channel for about a month now. And when we did our first show, it was the biggest show we ever did. Didn't even know. We just started the show like any other show, just to have a good conversation, good discourse, get some different perspectives on things. And a crazy thing happened. We had people that we didn't know were central to these conversations come into the chat. We had people that we didn't know that were central to these conversations come on the panel. That is our biggest show, our most commented show. It's still getting views. When we closed, it was at 2,000. I think it's at like 6,000 now. And you came on the panel, and then afterwards, during the show, because it was like 200 something people in the chat, and I said, let me ask a question. Who do y'all want to see? For obviously this has a big pull. Who do you want to see? Brother, when I tell you the first 20 clicks were True Savior. The first 20. And I remember what you said to me. You sunned me, right? And I appreciate it. Coming from Jersey, you can always understand what that means. You sunned me first. And it's one thing in Jersey, we don't get upset when our elders kind of, hey, relax, young man. You don't be in such a rush. Because you were telling me, Yeah, I'm not coming on the panel tonight. I want to see what y'all about. I want to see what y'all trying to do, see where y'all going. And I didn't know what you meant until I started doing my research, and I realized that, yeah, it does get a little toxic in conversation, so that's why we're trying to keep it clean. But without further ado, we got Truth Savior in the building, man. We got Truth Savior in the building. I'm gonna put you on the Summer Jam screen for a little while. I'm gonna ask you some questions. I have a lot of questions. Put your questions in the chat. Go ahead, brother. Melanated Warrior in the building. What's going on? Logic's in the chat for some reason.
Yeah, I definitely want Logic up there.
Yeah, I guess.
Logic don't want no part of this stuff.
Yeah, I think Logic might be a little afraid, but Logic is our resident anti. He has
antagonist.
Yeah, he's an antagonist, but I love it because it's not fake. He's antagonizing from a place of not always like hate. I mean, he gets killed in our comments, but he don't care about that. The thing is that he's trying to get to. He's on a journey. He's trying to get to the root of this thing. And as you read, like Truth, as you read, some things will take you one way, another thing will take you another way. Some things take you, and then you got to kind of discern there. But enough about us. Truth Savior in the building. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, you know what? I'm not a guy with a lot of credentials or advanced degrees. I'm a college-educated guy. I graduated from college, but in terms of did I write books? No. I'm a musician. Did I record music and went to the top 100? No, I did none of that. I'm a local musician, church musician. Also do some jazz in the Pennsylvania and New Jersey area, as well as R&B. So I come from a musical background. That's where my interests mostly lie. Now,
Okay.
How did I get caught up in hip hop, in this discussion of hip hop? Now, for context, when Rappers Delight came out, I'm 19 years old. For me, Rappers Delight was a fad to me, because I grew up at a period when music was, not to shame what the music is today, but I grew up in a period where music was music. When you had the groups, the OJs and the Delphonics, the Shylights, the Stylistics, groups like that. That's the era that I grew up in, And so when I first heard Rappers Delight, although I liked it, but I just didn't think that it had any staying power.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not coming here as a hip hop expert because I never was into hip hop that way. However, when the question became this 50-50 issue arose, and me understanding the origin or the foundation of hip hop culture or hip hop and where it comes from is clearly Black American culture. So that offended me when I heard Fat Joe say that. And so I felt like, you know what, coming from a musician point of view, since hip hop is a form of music, let me speak to that. And then so I would search the internet, and then I came across our good friend, Dr. Cologne. And so now, in all fairness for Dr. Cologne, it's not about a hit piece on Dr. Cologne, because I'm not going to do that. But when I first heard of Dr. Cologne, he came across as a very nice guy. And actually, he said hip hop was created by Black Americans, but Puerto Ricans assisted or helped out. That was his position back then, but that's like over 2 years ago. But that has shifted. Now it's become a particular situation where basically Black Americans are the third element of hip hop now, because the way he frames the narrative is that the DJ culture is Caribbean, the B-boy culture is Latino, and the rapping or MC culture is African American. And the MC culture came later. So that means that we are the third element. We are the last element of hip hop. So basically, he says the foundation of hip hop culture is the MCs and the dance, not the MC, is the DJs and the breakdance.
Okay.
So that means that we come last. So how insulting is that? To say that Black Americans come last in the evolution of hip hop. And so everything that he speaks to is tailored to the narrative that 1975 is the beginning of hip hop. Miraculously, hip hop just came out of nowhere in 1975. One date, 1 month in 1975, hip hop appeared. Okay. And there is no mentioning of an evolution process that points to its origins coming from people like him. And I feel like as a historian, how do you talk about something and not deal with the historical perspective of it? And so the reason why I feel that this is the case, he wants to substantiate that Black American culture has nothing, he actually said this, Black American culture has nothing, and I stress that word, nothing to do with hip hop.
Wait, say that again?
He said, and I stress this word, nothing. Hip hop has nothing to do with Black American culture. Now, how disrespectful is that? And he sincerely believes that. And this is what he's telling his followers, that hip hop doesn't come from Black American culture. It comes from, according to him, street, Bronx, or New York culture. Now, we will all agree that bricks, asphalt, masonry have no culture. Mm-hmm. They're not living things. So what we're ultimately talking about, we're talking about people. So let's, for the sake of argument, say, okay, it comes from the people in the Bronx, the individual in the Bronx that's made up of a multicultural group of people, right?
Okay.
Let's imagine that that's the case. Each of those individual groups of people have a culture. Whether you talk about New York culture, mm-hmm. Black American culture, European culture, Asian culture, they're all Americans, but they all have their distinct cultures. So when I posed the question to Dr. Cole, well, can you tell me out of these Bronx kids, which of these groups contribute what to what that made hip hop? You know what his answer was, if you don't remember? He says, no one cared about the music.
No, I remember that.
No one cared about the vernacular. So you're dismissing an obvious contributor to the culture.
Okay.
And you're conveniently doing that because you do not want to acknowledge where it comes from. Because if you investigate it and you ask those hard questions, right, it clearly points to Black American culture. And so this is why I know that it's a purposeful thing that he's doing to try to erase us. He says he doesn't want to erase us, but when you say, I don't care, no one cared about the music, no one cared about the vernacular, then you are erasing us. That's clear as day. Now, mm-hmm. Here's another thing that people don't, and I don't want to run on, but let me just say this.
No, great, sure.
There's another thing that people don't recognize. If you weren't born in the early 60s, you may not remember this period. There was a period called Black exploitation movies from 71 to 76. We got to remember, out of all the minority groups in the inner city, Black culture was the predominant culture. There was nowhere you could go in the inner cities anywhere in the country and from 71 to 76 and not see a Black exploitation movie. Some might say, well, some might say, oh, well, it's kind of negative, but it was a lot of positive. You got to see Black culture on display, good or bad. It was the dominant culture at the time. A lot of people took inspiration from it. Let's speak of Slick Rick. He's from England. He speaks of the impact of these movies that had on him, because he saw Black people strong, defying the man, as it were. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? So these movies had an impact, and these movies left a mark in the inner cities of every city. This is where you get to see the vernacular displayed. This is where people learn how Black people speak from these movies. Not only from that, you also have TV shows in the early 70s, like Good Times and What's Happening, Sanford and Son. All these shows that focus on Black people displaying aspects of Black culture. Name any other group, minority group, that had that kind of impact in any city during that period of time? And I would have to say none. Let's not forget the impact Soul Train had on everybody around the country. You get to see Black dance. Think about the way Don Cornelius spoke when he introduced a celebrity or entertainer, how he ended his programming, all the flavor and the suave of Black.
Right. Yeah, he was a cool joker.
The impact that had on the world. People consumed that. We were generating the culture that people gravitated to. So when you talk about what was going on in New York, that's all part of that. No one was feeling Latino culture because it wasn't a predominant culture. And so we have to really take all of that into consideration as to what was the dominant culture at the time, not only in New York City, but in any major city in the country. It was Black American culture. Some people would say, well, hip hop is a regional thing. It's a New York thing. Black people outside of New York have no right to claim it. And Dr. Colon would say, if every Black American don't deal with hip hop, they can't say it's Black American culture. Let that sink in.
Say that one more time.
If you as a Black American don't DJ, don't break dance, don't do none of that. Hip hop is not Black American culture because not every Black American does it. Imagine that. You're trying to tell me that you're not trying to take away from Black people when you make statements like that. So all of this is very offensive to me. And I'm sure a lot of my supporters and listeners who listen to me, we find that offensive because we know as Black Americans, we know what our culture is. We have no problem identifying what our culture is. So let me stop there. Maybe you have questions. I could go on a little bit. I don't want to keep going on. Maybe you have some questions you want to ask, and then maybe they'll tie me into something else I can speak to.
Okay. Hits, you got any questions? I definitely have a list of questions, but do you have any questions?
I'm waiting for the presentation, right? And then some questions.
No.
Okay. So we just gonna
the
ask
way we're gonna do it is like we're gonna ask questions, kind of lead the conversation, follow where it goes, and then towards the end, open it up to the chat, let them ask some questions. Shouts to the chat. 60 people just watching knowledge and not a lot of drama and mess and stuff like that. I appreciate that. I appreciate y'all for coming out. Before I get into
he gave us some of his background. Okay, go ahead. Before you get to the question. Go ahead.
Well, let me say this. Let me tell you what I do in terms of, like I said, I wasn't there in the Bronx, so I can't speak to everything in the Bronx. However, there are things that you can look up, things that you can read, things that you can verify. So when a person says, for example, I'll give you an example. If a person says Charlie Chase was a hip hop DJ in '75, you could do the research and determine whether or not that's true. Now, let's define what a hip hop DJ is. For many, a hip hop DJ is one who plays break beats, either for b-boys or for rappers.
Okay.
That is for many people, that's the definition of a hip hop DJ. Okay. So if someone will propose that Charlie Chase was a hip hop DJ in '75, you can find information that doesn't make that claim. That doesn't support that claim, because I found 2 interviews by Charlie Chase, and actually I found 3 interviews by Charlie Chase. 2 are of him speaking, and 1 is a print media. And all 3 of them, they say that when he went to the Monterey Rec Room, he heard this music that he kind of heard before, but not played in the way that he heard it then. And it could be because the brothers were playing breakbeats. And he said one song that stuck out was Trans Europe Express. So when you look up when Trans Europe Express came out, it's 1977. So when someone offers the claim or suggests the claim that Charlie Chase is a hip hop DJ in '75, clearly that's not true, because you can't refute the day the record came out. You can't refute that. Again, here's another example. Let's take Flash, for example.
Okay.
Some people bicker about when did Flash come out with the quick mix theory. All right. So you do your research and you find a few sources that says, let's say for, what's his name? I'm trying to lose my thought. Kumo D.
Okay.
1978 at the Audubon Ballroom. He says that's the first time he heard it in 1978, the quick mix theory, right? You have Melly Mel saying the same thing. You have his partner, Easy Mike, saying that one day Flash woke him up and said, listen to this thing. And the song that he was cutting was Hot Shot. When did Hot Shot come out? 1978. So when people
say, so towards the end of the decade. Okay,
right,
towards the end of the
decade.
Okay.
So when people say, and also Melly Mel said the same thing, Hot Shot. He mentions that song as well, Hot Shot. So this kind of pinpoints, okay, this is when it really happened. It wasn't 75, it wasn't 72, it wasn't. So this is the kind of research that I do. So I can kind of pinpoint the dates by finding other sources of material that backs up or substantiate what I'm saying or claiming. So, so I just want to bring that out in terms of dates and how I come to my conclusions about what happened and what happened at what point in time, So.
Okay, so I did a deep dive into some of your shows and your content. So I'm going to ask some controversial questions. We're going to get it real spicy, real early. I'll put it on the screen. You said live, you're making me dizzy, thank you. The Latino culture has nothing to do with gospel, jazz, soul, neo-soul.
Put the guest on the big screen, man. Put the guest on the big screen.
When I ask the question, I'm going to put him on the big screen. That way,
you're going to do production too? Okay, I'm just checking, y'all.
Yeah, I got you.
Production.
I think he's enjoying they like to see us too for a hot second. They're going to get our ugly selves out of here. I know, get our ugly selves out of here as soon as possible. But
they want the information.
Exactly. You said, and I thought this was a controversial statement. So you said that Dr. Cologne. Now, first off, shouts to Dr. Cologne. This is not a hit piece. He gave a great presentation last week. But you two are kind of adversaries.
Yes, we are.
And you guys have a lot of information going back and forth. So his name will come up, but it's not going to come up negatively from us. He gave us a great presentation. He was our first presentation, so respect to him. And we kind of, we want to do media, but not biasly. So you said that he stated that Black culture has nothing to do with hip hop. So just so I'm not rephrasing it. You're saying that he said that.
Yes.
Now, I also watched one of your videos where you said that Latino culture has nothing to do with gospel, jazz, soul, neo-soul, house, or disco. Take some time and present your case and defend that. Because I listened to you when you said it, but it was kind of like a fast video and you moved to something else. But I'd like to hear how you would classify that.
Well, it's simple because as a musician, I know I have a good handle on music, and so if you're telling me that, the question would have to be asked: what kind of Latin music? And I can't think of any Latin music that I could say influence jazz, gospel, blues, whatever, rock and roll. I can't think of not one. Now, some people, that leads me to this thing. Some people will point to the influx of, they'll point to New Orleans. They'll say, okay, New Orleans was basically a Caribbean city in the United States. So you had a Caribbean culture in a sense there. So certainly it lends itself to the conception of jazz. I'm going to push back on that. There's a thing that Jelly Roll Morton speaks to. He calls the Spanish tinge. And here's what happens when I'm not using this word to pick fun at Dr. Cologne, but what colonizers like to do, this is not directed, this is in general, what colonizers like to do They like to take something that they discover and rename it. All right. So the Spanish tinge has nothing to do with Spain.
Okay.
Has nothing to do with Latin culture. It's just a term that was utilized. It's basically it's a rhythmic application to music. It's the way you play music or apply a music, but it's not related to any melody or folk music to any European or Latin country. So it's a misnomer. So when people hear Spanish tinge or Latin tinge, they say, "Oh my God, there we go. It's the connection."
Okay.
That's our connection to jazz, but it's not so. It's not so. This brings me to my next point. There's a Afro-Cuban rhythm that's called the clave rhythm, which is a 3-2 or a 2-3 rhythm.
Okay.
Ba, 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 right. So when Dr. Colón would suggest that, okay, whenever you hear that music and our music as Black Americans, that means that Cubans or Latino culture brought that to you guys. But what Dr. Colón fails to or doesn't know, and I kind of showed him that in the debate where I spelled out that these rhythms, first of all, we got to remember, we're descendants of Africans too. And although the drums were taken away from us in 1740, the rhythm still lived on. And the proof of that is the song Hambone. You know, everybody heard of Hambone, Hambone, have you heard? When you hear that rhythm, that's a 3-2 rhythm. That's the same rhythm that you would hear in Cuba. And if you look at Bo Diddley, anybody know who Bo Diddley is? He's one of the premier African-American, the beginning of rock and roll. He's one of the first.
Okay.
His song is based off of that 3-2 rhythm. A lot of his music is based on that 3-2 rhythm. That is not influenced from Afro-Cubans. So Dr. Colón wants to suggest that anytime you hear this 3-2 rhythm, it comes from Cuba without any proof whatsoever. And that brings me to discussing, I'm going off because it's helping me lead me to something else here.
Okay.
The fictitious Latin breakdown. Now, as you know, we've been back and forth for over 2 years. And the whole thing, the conversation has always been, well, you guys, from us, you guys are not foundational. Black Americans are foundational. So after hearing that for so long, he decided, okay, let me find a way we could say that we're foundational. So he came up with this term called Latin breakdown. And he used this word called descarga. It's a Latin term or a Spanish term that means jam session. But it patterns itself after American jazz jam session, but it's done to Cuban music. We have to remember there's a history of African Americans going to Cuba, performing, and vice versa for up until 1959. There was this back and forth going on. And so he wants to say that this word descarga is what we hear in our music. For example, let me give you an example. He speaks to the B-boy anthems. He talk about songs like Just Begun, Mexican or whatever, all these songs, Apache. And he says, whenever you hear bongos or congas in these songs, that's our influence. That's what he's saying. And it's not true. And so what he does, he tries to link it to a period in America called the Mambo period, which took place in 1940 and into the 50s. And this is the birth of Latin jazz, all right? And so he's saying that there was this mixing, because at the time there were Black musicians who would participate in some of these venues where these Latino musicians were, and vice versa. So he's saying because of that coming together and exchanging, Black Americans learned about these instruments. So he's trying to prove this link from Cuban culture, not Puerto Rican culture, Cuban culture, that led us, that showed itself in the 70s in these B-boy anthems. And the reason why he wants to do that, because the majority of the percussionists in these B-boy anthems are African American. They're not Latino. So how do you explain this African American presence on these instruments if they don't come from Cuba? And so what I did, I presented an idea that's more believable. In the late 1960s, there was the Pan-African movement. We were talking about the Civil Rights Movement. There was also a Pan-Africanist movement. There was the Black Power movement, the Black Arts movement. All of these things, the Last Poets, all of these things that were going on in the late 60s and early 70s that spoke to Africa. These were a lot of these drums were introduced to the Black community. I remember, I'm old enough to remember dance troupes coming to the community, performing African dancers and drummers. You know what I'm saying? And for me, this is the influence. It wasn't Latin culture, because in 1959, the Cuban embargo was instituted, and there was no back and forth of Cubans and Black and Americans any longer. So so when he talks about this Latin breakdown or this influence of Latin music in our music, is a false narrative. It's nothing that he can present supports it. And it's just a way of what we always say, crowbarring his way into the culture of hip hop, or to the foundation of hip hop. Now, I said a lot, and so if there's something you want me to clarify, I don't know if I answered that question at all, but
no. You answered it. It's just the reason why I asked is because it seems a little difficult to, in this conversation where it's taking me is, I won't lie. In the beginning, when we first started talking about this, I was looking at the demographics, the political times at the beginnings, in 1970, in the Bronx in New York City. And before I got all this information, I'm trying to form my own perspective. And Hits will tell you, we've had private conversations where when we came into this, I was telling them, there's no way that you can possibly remove Latinos from the beginning of hip hop. And as I've heard these shows, as I've gotten the information, as I've gotten more things, it's shaping my perspective. And then I'll read something else that'll take me in another direction. See, like Logic is good for, that's how he's going to come up in a little bit. He's good for kind of challenging perspectives and making it not so just clean cut to just say, because I'm coming in as a novice. I'm an 80s baby. So I'm not, I don't know anything about what was going on in the 70s. So I'm coming in blind. And that's why I appreciate you. I appreciate people that present information, people that any perspective, so that I can go and then look that up. So in one of my conversations, and one of the things that I was reading, we have great conversations in the Discord. The Discord link is pinned. Y'all join up. They were telling me about Jimmy Castor.
Right. And see, we have this running joke. Hits is our tech guy. So we have this running joke about ChatGPT. And he'll tell me, ChatGPT is a tool, use it. I'm a person that's like, it makes a lot of mistakes. So I'm always a little careful about using it, this, that, and the third, right? So Jimmy Castor is sometimes credited with being at the origins of hip hop, or being at the beginnings of it, and used kind of as an example. I've read it in about 4 or 5 different places. What do you say to, first, maybe you want to educate everybody as to who Jimmy Castor is, and then what do you say to people that will say, listen, he was there at the beginning, so there's no way you could say he didn't have an arm in the beginnings of hip hop? Well, we have to keep in mind that these songs like Apache and It's Just Begun, they were not made for B-boys. They were adopted later for B-boys. You have to remember that. Jimmy Castor didn't make that song and say, I want to make this song for the B-boy. That's not his intent. So a lot of these songs were never for the B-boys. A lot of these songs came from our parents' record collections. Had nothing to do with hip hop. They just found these obscure songs that many people may not have heard and said, let's dance to this. But the creator of these songs didn't have hip hop in mind. So we got to think about it in that regard. Now, Jimmy Castor did say in an interview that he was influenced by Latin music. And so
Okay.
there's a part in the song Just Begun where there's a break. The break is about 2 minutes long, and it features a whole lot of different instruments. The timbales, what Dr. Clone likes to say, is a Latin instrument, therefore it's a Latin influenced song. It's about 17 seconds.
Okay.
And so he'll say that that is the Latin breakdown. 17 seconds of a over almost 4-minute song. And so this is the extent that they go through to try to substantiate themselves as a foundation of hip hop. And so when you look at the bongo rock, Apache, that was influenced by a guy named Preston Epps. And he was one of the first Black American bongo players in the 50s. He made a song called Bongo Rock. It doesn't sound like the one that that everyone is familiar with, but he was the consultant on that album, The Incredible Bongo Band. He's one of the consultants, and he's Black American. He wasn't influenced by Latin culture. He was influenced by Africans. He talked about Africans coming to Los Angeles and, you know, as part of these tours that I was referencing, and he fell in love with these African drums. And before they left, they gave him some drums, and that's how he became a bongo player after that. But it had nothing to do with Latin culture. So when you know the history of how these songs come to be, you realize it had very little to do with Latin culture. And let me be clear, I'm not trying to remove Latinos from hip hop whatsoever. I'm not trying to do that. Matter of fact, I remember even John Leguizamo, he had a special about highlighting Latino.
Yes, I saw it.
Right. And he did his thing in New York. And he actually said hip hop was created by Black Americans, but the Latinos was the Scottie Pippen of hip hop, meaning they assisted. So even John Leguizamo understood who created it.
Right.
Puerto Ricans did help. Puerto Ricans did contribute. Puerto Ricans did participate, but they're not the creators. No matter what they say, they cannot lay claim to any of the creations. And I'm going to keep going. So go ahead.
No, keep going. This is your listen. Hey, Truth. Now, first, you my Jersey brother. I'm gonna say that first. Secondly, they've been asking for you. They want to hear what you got to say. That's why I got you on the Summer Jam screen by yourself, because I've watched so many of your videos. It's kind of surreal even being on a panel with you. I appreciate you made us earn it first. But they want to hear what you got to say. This is informative and perspectives. That's what Tri Media is about. So go ahead, most certainly. Cook up. I got other questions, but I want you to cook.
Okay, so like I said, no one is trying to erase Latinos from hip hop. I remember my second video, I actually said that. My very second video over 2 years ago. No one's trying to erase nobody. But we have to understand our position in the evolution of the culture. And once you overstep your position, that's when people like myself have to say, hold up, let's discuss this, because you're overstepping. And what I mean by overstepping, here's another example of overstepping.
Okay.
Dr. Clone wants to Latinize James Brown. And what I mean by that?
That was actually my next question. I can't believe you doing that. But go ahead. What is the Latin influence on James Brown? That's exactly
my next question. I call it the Latinization of James Brown.
Okay, hold up. Let me go ahead, cook up. I got to change the banner.
Okay.
Go ahead. I'm listening to you.
Now you're talking about the Godfather of Soul, who is a descendant of Gullah Geechee people.
Oh, really?
So
okay.
You can't get no blacker than that. You know what I'm saying? In America.
Yes, sir.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes,
so
sir.
He's trying to Latinize James Brown. So how does he Latinize James Brown? He points to his percussionist or his conga player, whose name is Johnny Griggs. Apparently, Johnny Griggs had played with a Latin group, I believe in 1968, called Ishmael Miranda and the Orchestra Harlow. Now, although he did not play congas in that group, he played some percussive instrument and he sung, right? So Dr. Clone wants to use that affiliation, because later he joined James Brown's band. He wants to use that affiliation to suggest there's the Latin connection. So what you hear on Give It Up, Turn It Loose, according to Dr. Colon, is the Latin connection. It's the Afro-Cuban connection. That's how us Latinos fit in. That's it. Clap your hands, stomp your feet. That's us. That's the claim.
Okay.
When you examine through ethnomusicology, you understand that he wasn't speaking of that. And I showed that in the video where it was speaking about Africa, you know, swinging on the vine, and it spoke to how James Brown was always conscious of how Black people were portrayed. And he wanted to, instead of making the jungle imagery, when he says in the jungle, he wanted to make it the jungle imagery not about a negative thing. He wanted to make it about a positive thing. So he was trying to flip it. So that's what the reference to in the jungle, has nothing to do with Latin culture. Because let's be honest, when you think of the jungle, I don't think you're thinking of anywhere other than Africa for most people. Most people, whether or not jungles exist in Africa or not, most people are trained to think like that. And I gave an example, The Rumble in the Jungle with Muhammad Ali and George Foreman. That imagery, the jungle. So you're going to think Africa. This is what James Brown was talking about. Actually, he did a concert for that fight. So in the jungle, that was the reference. It was an African reference. So when you hear the conga being played in that particular song, that's a reference to Africa, not Cuba. Dr. Colon wants you to think it's Cuba because he wants to crowbar his way into the culture. So this is what I mean by the Latinization of James Brown. So any song you hear conga, according to him, in a James Brown song, is related to Cuban culture. And for me, that's insulting because it's not true at all. So, and
it seems like you're genuinely, you know what I appreciate about it, you know, from watching your videos, it seems like you are genuinely, this actually bothers you. You know, it's not just like just words and, you know, or it's just, you know, no, they're just wrong. No, this bothers you. It seems like it actually like really hits you where it hurts. DQ in the building, what's going on, G? So go ahead, speak to that. What's going on, brother? Speak to that.
Well, because I'm a defender of Black American culture. I'm a defender of Black people. I love my culture. I don't want anyone to take advantage or appropriate it without giving credit to the people who originated it. And so when I feel that people are overstepping, then I'm going to speak to it. There's this guy, actually, I've been dealing with, you probably see in a couple of videos I did about him, in the UK, who's saying that jazz is not Black American music. So I had to go after him. You know, so for me, it's personal because I know my culture. I know what my people did. And if you're going to tell me that's not true, I'm going to come after you. I actually prepared another video. I got to deal with him because he did a response video to me, but I haven't had the time. And for me to really adequately deal with him, I have to really dig into the research. I have most of the information I need, but I have to really dig into some and really spell this out plainly. So without question, the answer is it comes from us undoubtedly. Why even question it? You know, so it's about Black culture. It's not necessarily about hip hop, but hip hop was the vehicle that I got into this by. It's anybody that I feel is being offensive to Black American culture and especially Black American music, I'm coming for you. That's who I am. That's what I believe. So it is personal.
DQ, I got hits in the building. Logic said he'll be here in 15 minutes. I think that's going to be very exciting. Our resident, or our president of our the company. I like his views. I like how he presents his perspectives. DQ hits. Y'all got anything before we take this commercial break? Adrian in the building. Rogish in the building. Peace to the chat. Melanated Warrior.
Yeah, I just want to, because we're not here to agree or disagree with our guests, you know, for the most part.
Yeah, we're gonna do
but if there's a point of agreement, there's and to make it more broad, if bands are either cover bands or they perform a particular genre of music, and I think what the brother is saying is when you join a funk band, you're playing funk music. It doesn't matter what nationality you are. They need a bass player. They need a bass player to play funk music or soul music or jazz music or rock and roll. And a lot of times you hire the best person to play that instrument for the kind of music that you're playing. So it doesn't always add up to a funk band is all black people or people from the South, or blues band may not all be people from, the Southeast or something like that. They're trying to find the best player of that instrument for the genre of music that they're playing. So that's different than in somebody like Jimmy Castor. Even it doesn't, not that his background or his lineage doesn't matter. He's listed as a funk and soul artist.
Right.
Because he played funk and soul music. And if you listen to funk and soul music, and again, you go back to that era, you don't have videos. You listen to music, you buy a record, you play it, you listen to it. You don't know what color these people are. You don't know what studio it came from. You know it's the kind of music that you want to hear. You don't know how many people are in the band unless you're going to read the back of the album cover, the credits. But that's something for us all to keep in mind when we're doing history about music. A band is not necessarily made up of based on ethnic group. It's based on genre and instrumentation, period. So to fast forward right now, Eminem is a rapper, right? He's white. Mm-hmm. So that would be like saying because Eminem is a rapper and he's white, white people made rap. White people did all of that. No, he came into the rap part of hip hop. Regardless of his upbringing and all that, he's specializing in rapping. So that's what he's coming in as, a white person who raps. He could have sung rock and roll. He could have did the Kid Rock thing. He could sing, I don't know what they got going on in Detroit, as far as white people go, but he could have chose any genre like we all could, but he chose rap. He's one of the top rappers and he's white, but that doesn't mean white people, created rap or even Detroit rap or battle rap or anything like that. So let's just keep that in mind when we're talking about bands, the genre of music and the purpose.
Every now and then I'm gonna take a question from the chat. It says, ask the guy from the UK. I believe he's referencing Knockmeezy. Shouts to Knockmeezy, man. I apologize. This holiday weekend is crazy. I promise I'm gonna get to you as soon as matter of fact, tomorrow morning, I promise. Ask the guy from the UK if he's talking about Creoles or Creoles of color that invented jazz because they are different groups. Truth Savior.
What was that again?
Who do you think up here is from the UK?
You probably think I'm from the UK.
No, he's asking you to answer the question, but he says ask the guy from the UK. The only guy I know from the UK is Knockmeezy when he has these conversations. So, but I don't know. See, I don't know. Take what you can from that question. Creoles and Creoles of color that invented jazz because they are different groups. Truth Savior.
Okay, I'm under the impression that the foundation of jazz includes really two forms of music, really.
He's a white guy. Let's talk about
two forms of music. Without ragtime and without the blues, there is no way you could even have jazz, right? Now, the Creoles, what happened was the Creoles, I'm not going to get into the Creoles of color. I'm just going to stick with the word Creole.
Okay.
Because as it's defined in jazz history, Creoles were a part of a caste system that they had the same rights as white people up until a certain point, especially around the ending of the 19th century and the implementation of Jim Crow. They became black overnight. Now, these Creole musicians, they used to play at the opera houses and things of that nature. But after Jim Crow was implemented, they had no more work. And so they had to go uptown and hang with the Negro folk, the Negro musicians.
Okay.
And the Creoles were very instrumental in helping develop jazz, but the Creoles didn't bring a form of music with them. There is no form of music that you could say the Creoles brought, but they were expert musicians because they were classically trained musicians. But they had to learn how to play like Black musicians in order to facilitate this new thing that ultimately became jazz. So if the question is, did the Creoles create jazz? Absolutely not. Just as the Puerto Ricans assisted, the Creoles assisted in jazz. That's my question, an answer to that question.
Yeah, perfect answer. I mean, they given a lot of good answers in the chat. Hey, Trell, you seem to know a lot about music. One of these days, I'm gonna get you up here. So ask the question, Dream. Damn, you done put in the chat 5 times. You got a question? Just ask the question. What about? So now we're gonna move to a different level of question. So now your premise is that hip hop is purely Black American culture, 100%. As far as for the creation, could you explain what exactly? Because nobody ever does that. They just tell me what the Latino population didn't do. Mm-hmm. Tell me what, based on your research, tell me what specifically, I mean, dates, and if you can do dates and eras, specifically, what did Latinos do in regards to the origin hip hop, if anything?
Well, like you said, the origins. No, I'm not going to say they had absolutely nothing to do with the origins of it. But they were around due to proximity. Let's be honest. You know, the Bronx was full of Puerto Ricans and Blacks. However, there were segments where Blacks were pretty much the dominant grouping of people. Like when you talk about Faze, talk about how Bronx, what do you call it? Not Soundview, Bronxdale was mostly Black. Coke La Rock talks about how the Hevalo at the time when he was with Herc was mostly Black. So although they were a mixing, not every area was like that. And like I said, before 77, it clearly wasn't that way. So let me see if I can answer it this way. How are they a part of the origin story? Again, they're not part of the origin story, although they were there. They were there. You have people like DJ Tex Hollywood who played with Mario. He was there, but many people didn't know that he was Latino. People today say that no one knew that he was Latino. You got to understand it. This speaks to the dominant culture at the time, which was Black American culture. Coke La Rock is on record saying he didn't even know Herc was Jamaican for 2 years. And why is that?
Really? Wait, say that again? Say that one more time?
Coke La Rock didn't even know Herc was Jamaican for 2 years. He's on record saying, if you look at the culture since 71, look at the video, he's being interviewed and he says that. He had no idea that Herc was Jamaican for 2 years. And one day he said he went over his house and heard his mother speaking and realized that they were Jamaican. And so the point I'm making is these other groups assimilated into Black American culture because it was the dominant culture. So due to proximity, Latinos were there. Now, 1975 for Dr. Cone is very important because there was this group called TBB, the Bronx Boys, Rocky. Okay. Now, in my research, the Bronx Boy Rocky Crew was a rock crew. It was a different form of dance. It wasn't a breaking crew. They weren't B-boys. Puerto Ricans at the time did not go by the name B-boys. B-boys was a term only for Black dancers.
Okay.
Before 1977, Puerto Ricans didn't refer to themselves as B-boys. They referred to themselves as rockers. So, but now people want to say, oh, it's interchangeable. It's the same thing. I have clips where you have these rockers these Puerto Rican rockers who would say, "Oh, when I saw breaking, I didn't like it." It was, and they refer to a year, 1977. You have a rocker named Frank Rojas says this, 1977. King Uprock, another Puerto Rican rocker, says in 1977 he saw breaking for the first time. "Oh, I'm not getting my clothes dirty. I'm not doing that."
Okay.
So the idea that rockers are equivalent to b-boys is not true. And Dr. Colon wants to suggest that the rockers predate anything dealing with the b-boys or dealing with the brothers. However, this rock dance by the Puerto Ricans was dance to music that we created, that Black Americans created. So if you look at, I got a video that speaks to that. It's called Up Rock and Rocking. It talks about the history of the rock dance and where it comes from. You got Latinos, Puerto Ricans referring to Soul Train as influences, calling a dance, before it was called the rock dance, calling it the funk dance, things of that nature. So they speak to the origins of it, but now years later, oh no, it's just us. It was us. We did this. You guys didn't influence us at all. This was just us. But you're dancing to our music. How do you create a dance, but the music you choose to display that dance is our music? Does that make any sense? And so
no,
this
is
what I explored in that video about Up Rock and Rock. And so let's go back to 1975, when TBB became a rocking crew, this Latino crew, right? Now, Colon wants to suggest that they were the first, not only the first Latino b-boy crew, but the first b-boy crew. He's not acknowledging crews like the Chuck City crew, the Casanova crew, the Gun Hill crew, the Zulu Kings. He might acknowledge the Zulu Kings, but he puts them slightly after the Puerto Rican crew, which is very disrespectful, because there's more than enough evidence to suggest that not only were we doing it first, we were the first. Let me give you another example. There's a video.
Okay.
There's a video where Track 2 is standing next to another Puerto Rican b-boy named Jojo, or he goes by the name Spider, but his real name is Jojo, I guess. And he's explaining, he was saying, you know, by the time he picked up b-boying, the brothers were saying, "Why are you still doing that? Why are you still going to the floor? Why are you still getting your hands dirty, getting your clothes dirty? You know, that's played out." And the Puerto Ricans talked about how, you know, it upset him that the brothers were telling him that it's played out, but he loved the dance so much, he kept it going. And he referenced the Zulu Kings as being one of those crews that was out there doing the thing. Now, I want you guys to listen to this very carefully. Dr. Colon wants to present the image that no brothers were going to the floor. No brothers were doing footwork. It was the Latinos that did that first. That's what he wants you to think. But think about this back and forth that Jojo is having with the interviewer. Jojo is saying, the brother is telling him, "Why are you still going to the floor? Why are you still dancing on the floor? Why are you still getting your clothes dirty?" So whatever the Puerto Ricans were doing seemed similar to the brothers, for them to say, "Why are you still doing that?" So this whole image to suggest that the brothers were not going to the floor, it was the Latinos, is a lie, because Jojo said that the brothers said that. And Track 2 was standing right next to him, actually agreeing with Jojo in his assessment of what the history was like. So what's happening now is that a lot of these Puerto Ricans are trying to rewrite the history to make it appear that the Latinos were the first b-boys. So they disrespect people like Sasa, Trixie, Clark Kent, the legendary twins, El Dorado Mike, all these guys, they disrespect them. They disqualify them. They say they're not b-boys. We're the b-boys. Those are not the b-boys. So he used 1975 because that is the year that TBB became a rocket crew, and he's associating rocking with b-boying, and then tried to supplant the brothers who came before. Now he was like, again, he's saying the brothers didn't go to the floor. There's a group called the D Squad, And I can't pull up. I could pull up, but I'm not going to worry about it right now. But the article where Keith Cowboy is talking about, because he was a b-boy, and he was talking about when he saw the D Squad, they were doing all this stuff on the floor. He said he ain't doing that. This is 1974, 1975.
Right.
So clearly there's a history of brothers going to the floor. You talk about Little Boy Keith. You talk about Beaver. All these are baby Zulus who were clearly had street cred in the Bronx. Were the best b-boys in all of the Bronx, according to many. Clearly, and a lot of Puerto Ricans cite people like Little Boy Keith and Beaver as their ultimate inspiration. So if the brothers weren't going to the floor, why in the world would Puerto Ricans be interested in going to the floor or doing that at all? So we got to be careful about the history and how people are trying to rewrite it. And this is why I say that Puerto Ricans, or some Puerto Ricans like Colon, wants the Puerto Ricans to be the face of breaking, the number 2 slot next to the Caribbean slot of the DJs, and we're the Johnny-come-lately at the MCs. And so this is for Dr. Clone. This is the definition of hip hop culture. It's a total revisionist history that I'm here to correct. All
right. We're going to take a break. You said a lot. You actually added 2 more questions. You said you added 2 more questions to what I got. So I'm really enjoying this. I appreciate it. We're going to take a commercial break. Hey, y'all subscribe, man. We got 108 people watching, and it's only like 30 likes. Like and subscribe to the channel. We're like 10 away from 350. Like and subscribe. We're going to come back in 1 second, take a small commercial break. And check them out on all platforms. DQ Hampton. That's early morning featuring Casual. DQ, what up, bro? We're going into the second half of our show. Start putting questions in the chat. Logic was requested, so Logic is here. He'll be back in 1 second. We up to 2,500 comments. I don't understand how this happens. We're a small channel with like 340 subscribers, but we got 100 people watching, which is exciting. We end up after all these shows with thousands of comments, so we appreciate you for that. It's not about the views right now. We're just trying to build our channel, show respect to hip hop. Shouts to the mods, shout to Knock Measy, shout to Dr. Derek Colon, shouts to True Savior giving us D-Red. Hey, we trying to cook up one of our presentations with Dwan B. Very big fan of his channel. I've been watching. He's got so many guests and things like that. So many people in the chat. I know he misses it, but we're very big fans. If anybody can assist us with getting in contact with the brother, we'd appreciate it. Hits is in the building. Logic, I see you in the building. We'll have Brother Truth Savior back on in 1 second. Hits, how you think it's going so far? DQ, how you think it's going so far?
I'm loving it. I'm you know me, I'm a sponge of information. I'm thinking of songs and stuff like that. So I'm sitting back as a student of this culture and of this craft. I'm just sitting back learning and getting different things that I can quick to throw in my repertoire. So yeah, I'm liking it.
I think it's difficult to give a lot of pushback because of the historical narrative that he's painting and like obvious references to, you know, our culture throughout the timeline. So, you know, we gave Dr. Clone a chance to come on, you know, and give us his point of view and his correlations. And I think it's overwhelming. Go to our community section in our YouTube channel. We got a lot of polls in there for people to take about what you think about the topics we're having, the shows. But no, it's hard to go against history, and it's a continuous line. That's my premise. It's just a continuation of African American culture. So you don't have to veer too far outside of that to, you know, see the influences on it. So I'm with Truth on this one. I think y'all gonna lose, man. Logic gonna get beat up. Come over here and get beat up.
Yeah, come on down and get beat up.
Come over here and get sleeper hold.
Our brother Logic has a show about FBA and ADOS coming up. Truth, I'm just letting you know. You might want to be in the building for that show.
Well,
we're working on that one.
It's gonna be, listen, let me tell you how fiery this show is. He's been telling us about this show since the first hip hop show we did with Knock Meezy, and then once again, love to you, Knock Meezy. Pull up if you want to, brother. And it's an interesting perspective on FBA and ADOS at the origins of hip hop. But out of respect, we've been literally cultivating his idea because I love my brother. He's a president of our company. He has a lot of his own views, and I don't stop anybody from giving their perspectives. And he wants to come on and do a presentation. But like I told him, I said, listen, bro, you're going to come onto this channel, you're going to do a presentation, and I'm trying to protect you, brother. They're going to eat you alive. They're going to try to, I don't know if you'll make it out the show. I told him, I said, listen, I'll come on to the show, and I'll try to mod it as best I can, as host it as best I can, but it's going to be rough. So I'm going to let him do a little intro. He's been wanting to talk to you all day, but he's from the deep south, the Gulf Coast, so the time frames aren't really matching up, but he'll be here in about 5 minutes. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take some questions from the chat real quick. They're telling us to get Dwan B. I want to let y'all know we've been trying to get Dwan B, but Dwan B in this conversation is a very busy man. Every time he goes live, he's got 200-300 people talking about it. I want to interview him because I like his perspectives, not his popularity per se, but he has interesting. When I host, I don't give my own perspectives. I like to, play point guard to the panel and get their perspectives. But he has a lot of good, interesting perspectives. Are you familiar with him,
Yeah, very, very much so, yes.
Yeah, I want to get him on because he could talk for hours and hours on the subject. And then y'all put in the chat, who y'all want us to get on. Tariq Nasheed, I'd love to interview him about that movie. Microphone check, but even him, these are busy people. We'll do our best. We do this for the chat. Shouts to our mods and everybody. But y'all put y'all questions in the chat. There were a few questions in here. Dream, if you asked your question, do me a favor. Just put it back in the chat if you could. But there was a couple of questions in here already.
Do us a favor too. If you have a question, just put like hashtag question at the beginning of it. So when we scroll through, it's easier for us to find them, please.
Okay, so I think there was a question about breakdancing on the Olympics. Are you familiar? Appreciate that, Nick Ombre. You leave the best comments. I appreciate you for that. Who petitioned the Olympics to get breakdancing into the Olympics? Are you familiar with that?
I have no clue.
No clue personally, no. Okay. And that's another thing that I appreciate you, right? I follow a lot of these people on YouTube, right? And one of the things that they say, and they'll say, you'll ask them a question and they always got an answer. Mm-hmm. I come from a long line of elders in my family telling me if a person always has an answer, they're usually wrong. So if they don't have the ability to say, I don't know, don't trust them. Don't trust them at all. So I appreciate that. I'm scrolling up to get some questions. You're doing amazing, like I thought you would. There's no question.
I have a question while you scroll.
Go ahead,
and find too.
Go ahead.
Can you speak to the term hip hop as opposed to the actual actions or the things that make up the actual culture and where you believe the term came from, not necessarily the different aspects of it, but where the actual term hip hop came from in a time frame, if you could.
Well, we all know that we all heard the stories about Cowboy and coming up, that story about his friend going to the army and all that kind of stuff. But I want to speak to the issue of...
No, I don't think everybody heard that story. You got to tell that part. I know what you're talking about. Hip hop, yeah, go ahead. No, you got to tell
ask the question again.
I'm trying to remember the actual people. I know it's Cowboy. I think his friend was going to the army. And there was teasing them, and they come up with this marching cadence, hip hop. And a lot of people talk about that being the genesis of that term being used. They're also talking about, I forget the other DJ, escapes me, Starsky.
Yep.
Yes,
Starsky.
him being the origins of that phrase as well. But at the end of the day, for me, when we talk about hip hop culture, we're really talking about a social construct, meaning that it's like race is a social construct. When we talk about hip hop culture, that's a social construct because it was created by one individual, the culture. When we talk about Bambaataa, that was created by him. At least he's get credit for that. And by doing that, he invited these other elements like knowledge and graffiti. When actually, when you really boil down to hip hop is really, if you want to boil it, yeah, it's really about DJing, dancing, and MCing. That's the genesis. For me, that's hip hop. I don't know if that answers your question. I don't know. But,
No, definitely, because there's the action, and then there's the name of the action.
Right.
And a lot of times, you name something after it was developed, or you see it, or you call it something, or you change the name, right?
Right.
So, that term came out after a lot of the actual, there was no hip hop records back then.
Exactly.
Was no hip hop music back then, and that's why I say that term may lead people to believe, okay, 73 it was hip hop. There was no hip hop nothing back then.
Right.
It wasn't. That term. There was no music for it. You couldn't play hip hop music. There was no hip hop music.
No.
There were no hip hop artists.
No.
So the term means something different than the action and the time frame and the people, how they used it or how they came up with it. So I just wanted, your take on that. Go ahead, Brass.
We do have a question in the chat. Who was the first, if you know this, who was the first Puerto Rican breakdancer?
No, I have no clue because I couldn't even tell you who the first, well, Trixie says he was the first B-boy, but it's hard to say because like dance is evolved. Everything is evolving. So if there could have been a brother doing similar dances that the B-boys are doing, but they didn't call it breaking. So it's all about evolving. So it's hard to put a person or a name to a particular dance or a time. So I couldn't tell you who the first Puerto Rican, but most people will say that Batch from the TVB crew would
TVB,
say,
okay.
Track 2 actually says that in the Freshest Kids documentary, he cites Batch as being the first one. I think he said actually the first B-boy or a Latin B-boy. And he cites Salso as being the first Latin B-boy group. So I guess if you go by Track 2, he would probably say Batch.
Okay. Second question. Did Puerto Ricans really create salsa?
Puerto Ricans did not create salsa. What actually happened was...
Wait a second. Whoa, 1 second. 1 second. Puerto Ricans did not create salsa?
No, they did not.
Okay, go ahead.
They did not. This is a little bit of a history behind it, and it starts basically in the late 20s, early 30s, when Mario Bauzo, who's a Cuban, Afro-Cuban, moved to America, excellent musician. But so he joins a band, a Chick Wedd's band, and for like 10 years, he learns all aspects of American jazz. And so one day in the 40s, he decides, you know what, I'm going to mix my music from my homeland with this Black American music, and I'm going to call it Afro-Cuban jazz. So now that's the first step in the creation of salsa per se. Now, even in the first Afro-Cuban band, which we call Machito and his Afro-Cuban band, there were Black Americans in the band. Not only were there Black Americans in the band, there were Black arrangers in the band, because this was a process that was, started. So there were Black people as part of that evolution. then that turned into the mambo era. And basically the mambo, that's in the 50s, more or less in the 50s, and that was the area where it was a high emphasis. This was really where salsa has its origins, but it's still a Cuban music. Mambo is still a Cuban music. But like I said, from 1959, when the Cuban Revolution hit, that's when Cubans could no longer travel to America and vice versa. So it was an embargo. Nobody could go anywhere. So imagine you see a stray dog in the road, and the stray dog represents mambo. And the Puerto Ricans are around and said, look at that stray dog. I'm going to grab that stray dog and bring it home. That's what they did with Afro-Cuban music. They picked it up, added their little flavor to it, changed the name from Afro-Cuban music or the mambo, and termed it salsa. So what you have is a music that's not originally created by Puerto Ricans. Just like reggaeton is not created by Puerto Ricans. It's a music that they put their spice on. And now we think of salsa as a Puerto Rican creation, which in fact is not. But they do deserve credit for bringing salsa music to the world, because they were the people who brought it around the world and presented it to everyone. And so that's why people believe that Puerto Ricans created salsa. That's the short end of it, basically, the history.
How long did you study all of this? I mean, I'm actually amazed at the range. You know, when we first started talking about the show, you immediately, as most humble educated people do, is like telling me, now listen, I wasn't this, I didn't do this, I don't know this, I don't know this, I know what I know what I've researched. But how did you get all of this wide range of knowledge? Like, what sparked your love and interest in and around this subject?
A lover of music. First of all, a lover of music in general, a lover of jazz. So in order to study jazz, you have to know all the elements of jazz, what went into jazz, the offspring of jazz. How did Latin jazz become a thing? How did fusion jazz become a thing? You got to have to kind of know that in order to understand the history. And so over time, this is how I come to that knowledge. And yeah, that's basically what it is. It's just, just experience over time. I didn't go to school and study, just things that I picked up over the years.
We got a question from American Dream. Peace to you, Dream. Still waiting on that first show, but peace to you. Question: does the recent Latino interest in claiming hip hop have anything to do with the new hip hop museum in the Bronx? And what does the museum say about the Latino contribution to hip hop? Have you been? I don't know the name of the museum. Do you know what he's referencing?
I'm aware of the museum, but
Okay.
I've never been there, but I do understand it does talk about basically the 50-50 theory of hip hop. And
explain that 50-50 theory.
That Puerto Ricans and African Americans created hip hop. So clearly that's not true, but that is the theme, from what I understand and what I heard, that's the theme of it. And as in reference to the Latino claim to hip hop that's emerging, I think it has a lot to do with demographics as well, because what's happening, Latino culture is becoming they are the largest minority in America now. And if you're a marketer and you want to sell records and you want to sell streams, and you have this market of Latinos, and you tell them that they're the creators of this genre, and this music that we're going to put out is really your music, and you're going to soak that music up. You're going to soak those streams up. You know what I'm saying? You're going to, because you're convinced, everyone is telling you, you're the thing now. You're the biggest market, you're the biggest group now. And so I think a lot of it has to do with the changing demographics of this country, and it benefits marketers to market to them. So why not tell them they created it? Why not? I would do it if I was.
So you would say that it's more like a Latino, it's more, damn, come on, Hits, help me out. It's more, not geared. I guess I would say geared towards,
Right now, I don't think the museum is open, and just like any, I guess, historical aspect of something, just like if you Google when did hip hop start, you'll get 1973, you'll get Kool Herc, you'll get 1520 Sedgwick, you'll get that Little Rec Room, and that maybe to someone, you know, on the other side of the world would go, okay, hip hop was created at this address in this room on this date, this very date, which is ridiculous, right? So the museum's not open yet, but if you look at their website, I can pull up their website. You know, they have terms like inclusivity, history, things like that. So that's any museum is going to show culture, and origin in there may be a different story inside of the museum as opposed to hip hop as a current and ongoing 50-year culture now, quote unquote. So they're going to have all type of information, and not only the museum. You can go on hip hop tours in New York City. I think there's two main companies. You just can Google hip hop tours, and you can come to the city, and they'll put you on a bus and they'll take you around the city to show you some of the different areas where, you know, things may have sprouted up. They'll show you 1520. They'll show you graffiti. They'll show you places where the movie Wild Style was filmed. They'll have people break dance for you, explain rapping, DJing, things like that. So you don't, you know, the museum is static, but they also have tours, and those, like Hoot said, are geared towards getting people to come, you know, participate. They're not very partial. So that it's going to be a museum. I'm waiting for them to open. I think 2025 they're going to be open, but until then they are hip hop tours. So
yeah, I think I was recalling, like they have these press conferences about the museum, and based on what they were saying about it, led me to believe it was going to be basically a 50-50 narrative that's going to be represented in the museum.
Let's see. Hold on, let me pull it up real quick. We ain't going to read the whole. We're just going to look at it.
Our brother Logic's having some connection issues. We'll get him up as soon as possible. Knock Meezy in the building. Just let me know if you want to come sit on the panel. And then we're going to open up the link to questions, because I don't want to keep my brother up here all day. We had him for an hour and a half. We'll probably do about 30-45 minutes of questions, and then do an after party to discuss the show.
So yeah, there it is right there. That's all. I don't believe it's opening. You have to learn about it.
It says 2025.
Yeah. Now, again, if you go off just imagery, right, you see the first image that you see on the page. If you click Learn About Us, you scroll down. I'm just going by imagery. You see the DJ equipment. You see this big old afro right here. And this is a popular picture they use in different, I don't have my cursor on, but you can see it over there on the left. And that's the new stuff. But there you go. That's authenticity, inclusivity, education, innovation, community, integrity, and social responsibility. So just looking at this picture, you can see, you know, it's inclusive.
Okay.
Community. And so that's it. Hip hop music, get involved. Next year, Herbie Hancock. Let me get out of here.
That's a wild picture of Herbie Hancock. I don't think that's not a cover picture to me. Question: before hip hop or disco, then I'm gonna open up the link, because now as normally what happens, Logic is having some technical issues. He wants to ask, but he's, like I said, he's in the Gulf Coast. They're having some tough weather down there, so just to be patient.
Can y'all hear me now?
No. Yeah, we can hear you, but don't interrupt my damn show. Give me a second. Cam up if you can, because I want to see your response to some of this. There's a Logic portion to this show for the chat. I think Dr. Cologne is in the building. We're going to let you up, brother. Just give us a second. Not Meezy, you family. If you want to sit on the panel, whether you got something to say or not, just come up or just ask for it. If y'all see it, give them the information. Knock Meezy in the building since day one. Mute your mic, Logic. So I'm going to ask you a couple more questions. I'm going to drop the link. and I'm gonna let you and Logic have a quick conversation. Before hip hop or disco got started, matter of fact, these would be rapid fire. Answer them as fast as you can. Question: before hip hop or disco got started, did Grandmaster Flowers, was he the first DJ before Herc?
No. Oh, Flowers. Flowers. Yes, Flowers.
Yeah.
Down Hollywood.
So Flowers was before
Flowers
DJ
was.
Herc.
Yes, he's out of Brooklyn. I'm thinking of Hollywood. Yes, Flowers.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. I'm not gonna ask that question. That one's a little wild. I want to.
Well, and also first is hard because there were DJs. There wasn't just one DJ. Like
right.
There was never one. There's time frames. So late 60s, early 70s. Yes. So there. Yeah. He definitely was before her. Go ahead.
Yes.
My bad.
I hear the term that hip hop is not rap. Can you take a quick minute and speak to that? Do you agree with that? That hip hop is not necessarily rap?
No, I don't. I mean, I do disagree with that.
Okay.
Rap is a part of hip hop, and this is I don't know where that comes from. That when you think about the evolution of hip hop, if it wasn't for rap, there is no hip hop. There is no there would be no vehicle where the b-boys, these Puerto Rican b-boys, would be able to showcase whatever they were doing, their breaking skills. It was the result of, let's face it, had it not been for Rapper's Delight, The Message, These Are the Breaks, songs like that, that put a spotlight on New York and brought to the world, hey, what's going on in this borough called the Bronx. No one would care, but it was rapping. How could you say rapping is not part of hip hop when that was the vehicle that gave a lot of people the break?
Mm-hmm.
You know, so I totally reject anyone saying it's not a part.
Are you familiar with kicking and knocking, or knocking and kicking? I don't know if there's an order.
No, I'm not familiar with that term. No.
So you just did it again. My respect level's going up. When you don't know something, you don't make it up. Just say, I don't know. Speak to the difference between African, Black rhythm, and Latin, Puerto Rican. Which one was in hip hop music?
There's no such thing as Latin rhythms. Let's be clear about that.
Okay.
There's no such thing. All Latin rhythms are African rhythms. So this is, again, trying to suggest that another culture did something that was unique from a different culture. Every rhythm that the Afro-Cubans brought to America came from Africa. They might put a Latin name on it, but they're all African rhythms. That's basically my answer to that.
Okay, I'm going to open the link to the chat. Logic, if you could speak, if you can cam up, that'd be great. But if you can't, I understand.
Let's let Truth close out if he got any, closing before.
No, I really don't. I really don't have anything. I'm good. I'm good.
Okay.
Oh, that's how
I'm out.
Logic is here. I'm out.
That's how us Jersey people do. He's good. He's built for this. Built brick tough. So I just want to be clear. I got the president of Tri-Media in the building. He's got a great show coming up. Be on the lookout for this flyer. He's got a great show. Yeah, I almost want to play a little sidebar that says the views of Logic, the president of Tri-Media, are not necessarily the views of Tri-Media Innovations as a whole. I'm gonna let him cook. You got your shot. Then I'm gonna let Doc come in and knock me easy. Y'all welcome to come on the panel. I'm gonna drop the link, but I want to let them discourse a little bit first. Go ahead, Logic. You got your shot, bro. What's going on, bro? How's the weather out there?
Bad in the mud.
Yeah, I know.
Be safe out there, bro. Definitely.
Yeah, be safe. Link is in the chat. Go ahead, Logic. You got your chance,
traveling and dealing with all type of bad, with all types of bad weather and driving conditions and all that kind of good stuff.
All right, so Logic, I'm gonna give you. Take some time and state your premise so that Truth can hear it, and then And also, Truth, if you have a Cash App or anything, send us the link or how we could donate or support. I'll put it in the chat. Go ahead, Logic. You're on the Summer Jam screen. Cook up. Look, why y'all put that on the comments? That's terrible. What's up, Doc? I'll bring you up in a second, bro.
Just rude, man. Terrible. Okay, so here's my premise. Right, I've actually done a fair amount of research as far as the stuff that I can dig up, and I'm under a clear impression that there's a difference between participation and origins, right? I get that. I'm all with that. Now for me, I have a tough time of pinpointing the origins. And that's okay. I think that's just based on my digging. That's based on the information that I can find, that I can read about it. And what it says is that it's a collaboration. Now, with that being said, I'm just saying what the information says. I don't have like I'm not as emotionally attached to what it says. So I can just, accept what it says. That doesn't too much bother me. But as far as my premise goes, I feel like this conversation takes a turn that is a little distracting, right? I heard you up here, you were mentioning things about your love for the Black community, how you stand up for it, and I actually applaud that. I appreciate that. I actually participate in that. I think that's actually really important to me too, is being a defender of Black people, Black culture, Black influence and Black image. All of that stuff is very important. So with that being said, it brings me to what would the diminishment of Black culture, Black image be if you did have to now accept hip hop as a collaboration, right? I don't think it diminishes what rap stands for. I mean, I keep calling it rap, but hip hop stands for what it has brought to the Black community. I don't think that's actually a diminishment at all to say it's a collaboration. As a matter of fact, and what I mean by it's a little distracting, because the more I dig in hip hop, and when I look at some of these interviews from some of these old guys like Kool Herc, Charlie Chase, and the likes, I see a theme of hip hop having some political and social implications, right? And what I mean when I'm saying it's distracting is that while we sit here and kick back and forth a cool conversation about who started, who didn't, I think we break away from the essence of what hip hop is altogether. I think it's another conversation that brings us even further from being able to bring these minds together, whether they be Black or brown, that help participate in furthering the Black community. The conditions in which hip hop are formed and forged out of are the social pressures, right? It's a way for the people with no voice to have a voice, right? It's an outcry to social injustice, to police brutality, and I guess the truth behind who originated it becomes somewhat irrelevant if you focus on that. To me, yeah, that's just my personal point of view, right? I can show what the museums say about it. People who are collecting artifacts, I can show what some of the other definitions of. Hits brought up one day that they actually teach hip hop in colleges and things like that, and part of the major points of the curriculum are the social implications and political implications of it. And I think we can all have an opportunity to like raise the level of the conversation, right, by giving more respect to that part of hip hop rather than attempting to pry it away from others or hold it all to ourselves. Because if it wasn't something that was any good, then it wouldn't be worth giving away, in an ironic point of view for art, right? If you could have the most beautiful art, picture or what have you in your house, but if nobody gets to see it, I mean, what do you actually have? If you can't express it with the world, if the world doesn't get to enjoy it with you, it's kind of
So, Logic,
I'm not really sure what that point. Yeah.
Do me a favor, Logic, real quick, because the chat is asking. In 2 sentences, state your premise. They're waiting on your show. They saying that Logic.
They're getting lost on the whole.
Yeah, they're getting lost in what your actual premise is, and then I want to get everybody get up. So, state your actual premise. In 2 sentences, state your premise.
Mm-hmm. We're getting away from the actual essence of hip hop. I'm trying to dumb it down. I'm trying.
Good. I got you.
I think that we're getting away from the actual essence of hip hop. The whole thing that makes hip hop really important is the fact that it has some social and political implications, right? Like not necessarily this or aura of togetherness, but when does our conversation collide with solutions to our social implications in our environments?
So for the most part, what you're saying is, wow, and I'm going to let everybody come up now. Knockmee's in the building, Dr. Derek Colon. Rogus, she was in the building. You're welcome to come back up. Link is in the chat. So essentially what your premise, hold on one second. I
think he's trying to gather people from the back room.
Yeah, I'm trying to get people from the back. Pause. I am not trying to get people from the back. Never.
Us old heads don't know what that damn pause is.
I don't care. Listen, everybody in that chat know, and I don't need to be clipped up saying that live. So once again, yeah, I know DQ, so they don't understand. His premise basically is this: while we're fighting over who basically is the origins of hip hop, I think that is getting lost. That we're missing out on the social and cultural implications of the other things that are going on while we're sitting here fighting over who's at the origin of hip hop. Would you say that makes sense, Logic?
That's really, really close. So we can go with that for now.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to let Dr. Colon speak. We're going to get right back to it. Dr. Colon, if you could cam up, I'd appreciate it. Welcome to the building. Once again, fire presentation, over 2,000 views last week. Like I said before, you stand on your square, and I can respect that. So go ahead, brother. Speak your speak. Welcome to the chat. Welcome to the panel.
I appreciate it, man. Thank you for allowing me to, come in. And this is not really anything directed at Truth Savior. It's more so directed at the channel as a whole. So I was led to believe that this channel has guests on the channel.
Yep.
And those guests, at least I was led to believe this, are not supposed to talk about other people. They're supposed to present their case.
Y'all mute y'all mics. I'm getting an echo. Y'all mute y'all mics. Go ahead, brother.
So they're supposed to be presenting a case. I get that. And, I respect, what Truth said. He has his truth and he's going to stand on it. And I'm not here to debate him.
Okay.
I'm just a little confused with the channel as a whole. I was led to believe something about this channel. I respected this channel, but I've been watching since the start of this live. And it's basically been an attack on me. From your moderators, who are supposed to be the leaders on your show. They represent leadership, and they're attacking me. Like, I've never seen a live where moderators attack people that's not what they're supposed to be doing. I don't know how you run it. That's cool how you run it, but I just want you to know that, a lot of the moderators that you got are FBA. and do not like me and have expressed it in the chat. And none of you are doing anything to address that, which leads me to be real suspect of your channel. You said one thing and you're allowing things, you know, you pretend to be this, and then when I'm not around, you allow this. I realize we don't have a relationship like that. I understand that. And you said you respect me and you respect other guests, but man, do I feel disrespected because I deserve none of the stuff that was said about me, the half-truths that Truth Savior said about me, without giving me the opportunity to defend myself, and now is not the time. I'm just telling you how I feel about your channel. What you're doing is wrong, bro. And you made me believe that this channel was one thing, but really, you got FBA all in your as your moderator. That's how we're gonna do this. That's what the other dude. See what the other dude is doing? This is what I'm talking about.
All right. Stop right there. All right. Let's just stop right there.
Did you see what he just did? This is a dude who doesn't like me either.
Okay. Hold on.
Come on, man. Like, what is this?
Now, hold on. You just mentioned respect, right? All right. Number one, if we got 100 people in the chat and you had a show to present your information, you were over top of 100 people, probably for more than an hour and a half. I thought that was fair. Secondly, hold on, bro.
What does that have to do with what I'm saying?
Hold on. We talking about respect.
Nothing to do with what I'm talking about.
Hold on. We talking about respect and disrespect, right? Right now you disrespecting me.
No, I'm not.
Right now you disrespecting me. You had more time, right? We put you, gave you your own show for you to present your case.
And did I talk about
hold on, let me finish my comment, sir. Right?
Bro, I'm not
technically
really even
you were above.
I'm not even really talking to you.
It's my channel, so you are talking to me. You are talking to me.
Brax, because he's the only one.
This is my channel. This is my channel.
Oh, I understand.
This is my channel.
I see what it is.
See, you're acting like a person who should maybe not even be in the chat right now. You said the chat is wild.
Bro. If you want to
get me on, the chat is wild. You're being wild right now.
No, stay on. No,
stay here. I let you talk. Now let me
my mind.
And I appreciate that.
Hold on. Just let me say my say.
And then let me go right after that.
This is how I look at it. You had the platform, not 100 people in the chat. They couldn't come up here. They didn't come up here on the panel when you were speaking for almost 2 hours and interrupt you, call you names, any of that. And the reason you had your show is because you came into our chat. So don't forget, you were in the chat first. So the same people you disrespecting, you were one of them at one point. You had something to say. We gave you a chance to say what you had to say. Bro, no one led you to believe nothing.
With your nonsense, bro. You spinning this with the...
I will get you out of here. I will get you out of here. And you can blame me.
Out of here.
Let me speak on this. Let me speak before
you a doctor? You a doctor? You sure you a doctor? Because you're acting like a patient right now. You're acting like a patient.
All right, let me speak to it. Let me speak to it real quick. I can't hear him.
The whole show was disrespecting me. My name came up. Your moderators are disrespecting me. But you told me you didn't allow that. But you certainly are allowing it. Hicks.
All right, let me speak to something real quick. If you feel disrespected, I'm listening to you and I hear that. The one thing about our channel, I'm an 80s baby, so I don't know anything about the beginnings of hip hop. And I'm gonna keep this short. Because if somebody feels something, I don't ever want to knock it out. As far as our mods, we do run our show differently. Our mods are not, I don't know, I guess what mods normally do, they regulate the chat, they drop links and all this other stuff. We're a brand new channel. They're not here to drop links. They're not here to do that, all of that stuff. I take people in our chat who are people who honor us, who give us a lot of questions, who give us a lot of comments, who drive the algorithm. They do that. I make them mods. It's a respectful thing. No one is allowed to block anybody in our chat except me. Now, to say that we don't respect you, if that's how you feel, that's fine. A person can feel how they want to feel. But to be clear, if we did not respect you, there's no way we would have given you the first presentation of this long series. There'll probably be 1,000 presentations on hip hop that people are going to come in and watch. We're going to get Knockmeezy, we're going to get Dwan B, Tariq Nasheed, Lord Jamar, all these people. But you were the first one. And I've caught a lot of flack in supporting you. Even when I shout Dr. Cologne out in the chat, I know you're not here anymore, so I'm just speaking to the panel and the show. Even when Dr. Cologne is not, even every time I say shouts to Dr. Cologne, I put this up last week. Thank you for all of our mods, Knockmeezy, Truth Savior, D-Red, Dr. Cologne, FBA, ADOS, and Hip Hop for a great conversation. I got killed in the chat for it, but it's my platform, so I don't mind getting killed. I'm just the host. Last week when you did your presentation, I made sure that while I do put up every comment, I kept the ones that were disrespectful to you out of the chat. Now, the chat gets spicy. It's a spicy conversation. It's a lot of passion. You have a lot of passion. You're not here, so I hope you see this. I am a person that believes anybody who stands on their square. You are one person arguing a premise or the most vocal person, a visible person, arguing a premise against an entire ocean of people. That's why I gave you the opportunity to speak first. So I just want to be clear. I actually respect your perspective. I respect that you have the heart to actually stand up and say the things that you do in the face of crazy amounts of information and say otherwise. You're welcome back on the panel anytime you want. You're welcome to come back in the show. I offered you and I opened you up to my Discord. So I'm going to leave it at that. I'm not really into the back and forth and all of that because at the end of the day, adults going to be adults.
He wasted his time on the panel, and I will implore anyone else who comes on the panel, don't waste your time. If you got a point, it's I think the people in the chat want to hear your point. That's it. Not about someone's man. Ain't nobody got time for that shit.
And the last point, hold on. The last point I want to remind.
I don't.
I understand. The last point I want to remind is stuff like this takes away. True Savior went out of his way as far as the disrespect. I just want to address the points because I don't address the emotion. I address the evidence. True Savior, if you run this show back, this is to the chat and the panel because we're going to have future guests and I don't want them to think, whatever. True Savior, on numerous occasions, said this is not about Dr. Cologne. This is about the information. It just so happens that you and him have back and forth. So the questions that I'm asking, even though these are questions from me, these are questions or defenses that you set up. The Timbales, the Jimmy Castor, I think that's his name, the Latinization of James Brown. These are all topics that you discussed. So it may seem like it's directed at you, but it's directed at hip hop. So once again, I thank Dr. Cologne, Knockmeezy, the mods, FBA, ADOS, and last but not least, I always finish by saying I thank hip hop. Knockmeezy in the building. State your case, gangster.
You salute. All right. Yo, shout out to the channel, the panel. I'm sorry, brother. Yeah, shout out to the channel, the panel, you know what I'm saying? The show, everybody. Here's a quick question. What part of hip hop is getting up here crying? Get that man a tissue.
There's no crying in hip hop.
Ain't no crying in hip hop. But that's what he does, and he's gone, so I'm not going to speak on him. But I want to thank Truth Savior for saying everything that I thought. I freestyle it because I'm not like a historian. I'm just someone that was raised on hip hop, whose father was raised on hip hop, a real New York City brother with roots down south. That's the perspective I come from. But I'm glad that the conversation is taking place now. I thank you, Fat Joe, for bringing out this 50-50 lie and myth so that we can address it now. Because if we don't, in 20 years, then hip-hop would have been, that lie unchecked would have been, the truth. And in preparation for certain debates, I said, well, let me start looking at, the Puerto Ricans in New York City from a positive standpoint, right? Because I'm kind of neutral on them. Even though I live there and even though I speak Spanish, and I was accused of being a Puerto Rican because I'm a polyglot. I said, let me look at it from a positive perspective. Let's see what contributions musically that Puerto Ricans had. And a lot of the stuff that I thought was Puerto Rican was Dominican, was Cuban. I'm like, well, I know they was heavy into freestyle music. That was created by Black American Shannon in '83. So I'm like, what did Puerto Ricans create? What did they bring? Well, they created bomba. And that's why I lived in Puerto Rico, in Loíza, but those are Black Puerto Ricans. They're Black Puerto Ricans. So let's not act like there's not a difference between Black Puerto Ricans and white Puerto Ricans. Okay, there's a huge difference. That's a whole nother show about colorism in Latin America, specifically Puerto Rico. I'm tired of people trying to rewrite history, co-opt other groups from their own so-called nationality, because Puerto Rico is not a nation, and then trying to Latinoize it. You know, and they try to create this false narrative and then get other people on the bandwagon by claiming it was Latinos. I said, first of all, when I came, I said, it's not Puerto Ricans, it's New Yorkers. Puerto Ricans didn't care nothing about hip hop. There's no origin story of hip hop in Puerto Rico, right? So then when you talk about New Yorkers, okay, that's a conversation we can have. But now they're flipping it to say Caribbean and Greater Latino. Well, let's go down that route. Let's go. Gerardo, Rico Suave. Y'all remember that song? Are, Rico, right? He wasn't Puerto Rican, he was Ecuadorian. Cypress Hills, big group, Mexican from the West Coast. Kid Frost, La Raza, Mexican. Even on a hip hop level, Puerto Ricans haven't been the biggest, because if they were, or even if there was half of the influence and contribution, then they'd have the same legacy today. They don't. It's been a lie. And as far as disrespect is concerned, look, hip hop has always been a stand on your square music, because it comes from the streets. So we're gonna stand on our square, and you have to be able to, you know, speak your piece in front of somebody. In what do we call it? We called it the cipher. But there was no crying in the cipher. If you misquoted one of the lessons, you got your stuff taken. That's a whole fact. You know, I don't understand how Dr. Cologne, and I'm going to speak on it because he was up here, but when you try to separate us from our culture and what we created, what turned out to be world culture, that we created, it was embraced by the world. That's an attack on us. And whether people identify as foundational Black Americans, African Americans, or what, we're the same people. So yes, you're going to get smoke. It's going to get contentious. And let me apologize to the show for playing the sad violin music, but I started feeling bad for him.
That was your ass, though. Man,
that was I had to
cut my build off with no music. I'll let you a DJ.
Yeah, for the record,
yo, I was muted.
I'm the one that muted you. That was me.
I was like,
because you know me. Hey, because here's the thing: we got many shows we gonna do together, and I hope you know that if the situation was reversed, I do the same for you, just to keep the presentation clear, because I don't want to miss the fact that this is Truth Savior show, and I'm gonna curse.
Okay,
right?
hold on. I got one thing for Knock
Meezy. He did an amazing job.
Hold on, I got one thing for Knock Meezy. Now that I know.
And we're not done.
Was rude.
Before I play it again. Play it one more time.
Was rude.
Thank you, brother. Like, and that's hip hop. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, that's what we do. We're not gonna be on a panel with a bunch of brothers and some sisters in the chat and get up here and start crying. Oh, y'all not being nice to me. This man accused me of not being Black. He said I'm a fake this and I'm a wanna be that. That's disrespectful. Go to his chat, and what you have is a bunch of Africans and Caribbeans and self-hating Black Americans throwing shots, trying to erase us from our culture, trying to say that we have no culture. It goes unchecked. So when you step into the Coliseum, you gotta be ready to shoot the fair one. Every time I come around, he runs. So we already know what it is, because look, Tariq can't speak on New York City like I can speak on it. And they better they better hope that my father's too busy for me to interview him about the real relationship between blacks and Puerto Ricans, okay? Y'all can take my word of it as a little shorty that was being led around Bronx, Brooklyn, and Manhattan when I was a kid. And I literally was led around by my hand. We used to sell balloons back in the day. On the streets. Train to train from Far Rock all the way up to the Bronx. So I've seen New York City because I beat the streets. So when you have somebody that represents New York to the fullest, then we can kind of push back on this fake narrative that's being pushed out. And it's a fake narrative. Like, instead of trying to claim our music, y'all should really try to create something outside of Bomba en Plena, right? That y'all created, because it wasn't salsa. Celia Cruz predates whoever they're calling the king of salsa. You know, and look, there's beauty in everyone's culture. Absolutely. I'm not going to say that, but musically, if Puerto Ricans created something in hip hop, or they created something that's relevant musically outside of their community, you know, I'd like to see it, because the math ain't mathing. So shout out to Dr. Cologne. When you get monetized, I'm going to super chat $5, which is symbolic of the price of a box of Kleenex, so he can cry his little tears and wipe his little face. Pobrecito.
Okay, give me 1 second. Yo, peace to you, Doc. Stay up here with us if you can. I know it's late. What time you want me to call you tomorrow? Just put it in the private.
Shout out to Knock Measy. He had me cracking up, you know. Shout out to that brother. Listen, that's the end of this particular video. Listen, like I said, you could always check out the rest of it a little bit, you know, you could go to Try Media and check out the rest of it. In the meantime, for any new listeners and viewers, thanks for, you know, checking in. Take a minute to subscribe, thumb up the video, and share. Until the next time, peace.